My name is Henry Baye, and I'm pleased to host you to the 5th episode of Season 4 on the L2X platform on Trust. I hope you've been enjoying the others in the series so far, and if you like them, please drop us some comments. If you have some reflections, please share them with us. In this chat, I would like to paint a picture of what a low trust environment looks like. Not such a positive subject. But I'll start with a question for reflection. What is the default assumption in your workplace? That people will generally do their job, or that people are generally incompetent and lazy? Many years ago, one of my bosses called Akwesi told me a story. Akwesi had a boss who had asked him to take a certain decision and given him verbal approval. He asked for him to put it in writing, and in almost jest, Akwesi's boss took a piece of post-it note and wrote the instruction on it and signed it. Unbeknownst to him, Akwesi kept the piece of paper. During a later audit, the auditors asked who authorized this transaction, and Akwesi mentioned his name, but he denied vehemently that he had given any authorization. Akwesi quietly pulled out the little piece of note that his boss had signed and given to him. My question is, why Akwesi insisted on a written approval instead of a verbal one? The answer is in how the story ended. It was a low trust situation. Francis Fukuyama is an American political scientist, political economist, international relations scholar, and a writer. He is also a senior fellow at Stanford University's Freeman Spogler Institute for International Studies. He says, people who do not trust one another will end up cooperating only under a system of formal rules and regulations, which have to be negotiated, agreed to, litigated, and enforced, sometimes by coercive means. Let me share a few things that are characteristic of low trust environments. Employees at low trust organizations are often bogged down by office politics and infighting. They are more likely to withhold information and hoard resources because they don't feel safe sharing them. As a result, decision-making is slower and less effective. I've done some previous episodes on politics in the corporate environment, and there are many lessons to learn there about the negative impact of politics, and one can see a clear connection between the subject of trust and the subject of corporate politics. Everyone is immobilized by suspicion and are constantly looking over their shoulder, worried that their colleagues are out to hurt and discredit them. They are quick to assume malice, viewing any accident as a deliberate and personal attack. The environments are full of passive aggression. They are also full of people who interpret ambiguous comments as passive aggression, which only serves to make things worse. A story is told of an Aramean official in an ancient history called Naaman. Naaman had a condition, and he heard that there was a healer in Israel. So he went to tell his king. His king wrote a letter to the king of Aramea asking him to help Naaman get his healing. Because there was low trust between the two nations, the Aramean king interpreted the letter as a call to war instead of a simple request to direct the Aramean official to the healer in his state. This kind of scenario is typical in low trust environment. Everything is treated with suspicion and given a different interpretation, and this can lead to many wrong decisions being made. In low trust organizations, people default into self-preservation mode. Every decision is made on the basis of immediate self-preservation, and long-term performance suffers because of it. That's the problem with low-trust organizations. Everyone is focused on their own goal. Some goals are even mutually exclusive, and so not everyone can win. That common goal makes for a united group focused on a singular task, with each member willing to go the extra mile to make things run smoothly. This reduces the potential for synergies and removal of waste, as there are silos that lead to duplication. Negative trust environments are very counterproductive, and there's very little to celebrate. This is the reason leaders must make every effort to build a high trust environment, and indeed must focus on holding trust up as an important value of the organization or society. Here are a few reasons why they must. First of all, low trust environments reduce collaboration and communication. Trust is the foundation and cornerstone on which effective teamwork is built. Teamwork means that each person is trusted to be working in the best interest of the organization and everyone. Just take a look at Formula One and you understand what I'm saying. Everyone in the team is trusted to play their part to the best of their ability and skill. When trust is lacking, employees are less likely to share information freely, and this serves as a major hindrance to collaboration and innovation. Critical information will not be allowed to flow to where it is needed, and this leads to inefficiencies and missed opportunities. Low trust environments also lead to lower employee morale and engagement. Where trust is low, people tend to feel highly undervalued and can be suspicious. This leads to low engagement and pride in the organization. Where this happens in small teams within the organization, it can represent for the employee their experience of the organization's culture. What happens then is that such disengaged employees are less motivated, which can significantly decrease productivity and increase turnover rates. It is natural that low trust environments also lead to increased stress and health issues. When people live in an atmosphere of constant skepticism and worry, this will naturally translate into higher stress levels. Over time, this can result in increased absenteeism, lower energy levels, and even serious health problems, further impacting work performance. This kind of environment can result into high error rates, negative customer and colleague experiences, and low productivity. When trust is low, the fear of failure becomes enlarged as people do not want to make mistakes. This is because mistakes are taken to mean a deliberate act. This leads to impaired risk-taking and lack of creativity. Trust encourages employees to take calculated risk and think creatively. In its absence, the fear of failure or reprisal can make employees overly cautious, stifling innovation and adaptability. Again, in low trust environments, the level of integrity tends to be low, and therefore unethical behavior is overlooked or even encouraged. This leads to ethical compromises and conflicts, and the results are legal issues, regulatory compliance, and a damage to the organization's reputation. Please make a note of this. While trust is hardly discussed or spoken about in most organizations and societal settings, it is probably the most important value to be developed at individual levels and organization levels. Indeed, the cost of low trust environment is so large that individuals and groups must do all they can to avoid a culture where low trust is pervasive. Today's generation of employees want to work in a culture where they are trusted to make the right decisions. They want to work flexibly and yet be trusted to do their job and be accountable. They want to work in organizations that can be trusted to do the right thing for the environment, promote fair reward, and do the right thing by people, the society, and governments. If you are trapped in a low trust environment, seek to build one by starting with yourself and creating permission for other people to act in ways that generate trust. It always starts with one person who is determined to change the culture. If you are a leader in such environments, start with yourself. We will be talking in subsequent chats about trust behaviors. Look out for those chats and start acting today. Let me conclude this chat with this thought. Low trust environments are terribly counterproductive and unhealthy and must be done away with at all costs. The future workforce places even more value on those softer aspects of work and relationships in the work environment, and we need a movement of leaders and people who help daily to create positive trust environments. Now let me invite you, as you reflect on this subject, to become part of the many individuals and leaders who are working actively and intentionally to eliminate low trust environments. In my next series of chats, I will now be delving into what is known as trust behaviors. This is the crux of the series, and you don't want to miss them. So here is what I'd like to request you to do. First, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. Like and comment to get more people seeing it, and share this video as widely as you can. Of course, if you have any questions or reflections, please share them with us. As always, I'm Henry Baye on the L2X chat. See you soon.